All right, welcome into the next Vegas Squares Snippet. In this segment, we are talking about Chicago Cubs and free agent pitcher Yu Darvish agreeing to a 6-year, $126 million deal. That just happened, and the deal could push as high as $150 million over the life of the contract. So, initial thoughts. You know, we've all talked about how kind of slow the free agency period has been. This kind of seems like more of a splash than it maybe should have been. But, with not many people getting signed, and Yu Darvish being one of the big names in this slow free agent market, the Cubs grabbing basically a bona fide ace to stabilize their rotation and probably going to let Arrieta walk at this point.
Yeah, he's jumping in pretty much the spot vacated by Arrieta. Joining on the roster of the lineup for starting pitchers, Lester, Quintana, Hendricks, and Chatwood.
Yeah, so Lackey's gone. Arrieta's gone, like you said. Yu Darvish last year was 10-12 with a 3.86 ERA and 209 strikeouts. Combined between the Rangers and the Dodgers, obviously he made an appearance in the World Series. Didn't quite go so well, but he is 31. He does still have a lot in the tank, so the Cubs believe. And they've decided to pay him appropriately, I guess, in excess of $100 million, which seems to be kind of the norm for a team that doesn't mind dancing and flirting around with that luxury tax.
Right. I sometimes wonder about the salaries for starting pitchers because, for a true ace, I get it. But for a guy like Yu Darvish, I just don't see the value, or I don't see the worth of paying this guy that much money. I mean, I'm looking at a site here that has a projected stat line for him for this year. They have him going 9-10 with an ERA hovering around 4. Like, why?
So pretty much similar stats as this past season.
Right. I mean,
but is that worth $126 million over 6 years?
Exactly. Like, how do you pay a guy that's essentially like number 3 or number 4 type starter numbers? Why are you giving him ace type salaries?
Well, I think because they're expecting him to go back to ace-type numbers, which he had in Texas, which, I mean, before his injury, yeah, I would have agreed to that. But after the injury, kind of all bets are off at that point. And, I liken the situation if the Cubs don't really feel like they have a realistic shot at Bryce Harper, what the fuck does the salary luxury tax mean to them at this point? Nothing. So baseball's the only sport where I say the contracts don't matter. You can pay a guy whatever the fuck you want. Because if you're willing to pay that luxury tax threshold, then by all means, make your payroll $300 million, if that's what you think it takes to win a World Series. However, if Chicago believes they have a shot at Bryce Harper, I don't know if I really understand this move. So it's got to scream to me. I know this, and for the next year, it's going to be the Bryce Harper ripple effect. But for me, I don't think Chicago feels they have a realistic shot at Bryce Harper. So they're going to spend money on pitching. Losing Jake Arrieta, this is probably about what they were going to pay him, maybe a little more. So you got to think maybe they got a little bit of a discount because from what I'm reading an article here by Bleacher Report, Arrieta actually turned down an offer very similar to this. So you got to look at a guy like Yu Darvish, who's the next best splash on the market, for taking a little bit of a pay cut. It's got to feel like they actually came out ahead with this, even though you're saying Darvish is projected to be just an average starter.
Right. I guess the big question is, like, for me, I can see it when you're giving it to a guy like Arrieta who can put up crazy numbers. I can see it if you're giving it to a guy even like Kyle Hendricks, who, the last 2 seasons has been unreal. But I just, Yu Darvish, maybe just not blowing my skirt up the right way. But
I think you're looking at a prisoner of the moment thing. You saw his Game 7 appearance when he was bouncing an inning in a third.
No, I mean, I'm looking at his full stat line here. From last year combined between Texas and the Dodgers, like, I know he got voted to the All-Star game somehow, but, he was 10-12. He had an ERA 3.86. His whip was, like 1.16, which is fine, but
his opponent betting average was like 220.
Right, but
so, I mean, that's,
and I know win-loss isn't the most notable thing, but I mean, how do you have a guy with an ERA hovering around 4 getting paid ace money? That's my I'm gonna keep harping back to this point. I don't get the economy of baseball anymore, I guess is the bottom line of this.
I think it's just the fundamental basics of the economic market right now. Who are the best 2 pitchers on the market? Darvish and Arrieta, correct? I mean, I think we can all agree with that. I don't know of anybody.
So, yeah.
I don't know of anybody exactly right now, off the top of my head, that's on the market. Kluber's not on the market. Scherzer's not on the market. Kershaw's not on the market. Strasburg's not on the market. Correct? We can Sale.
Yeah.
We can agree. Those guys aren't on the market. So these guys, Arrieta, who's going to probably command somewhere around close to this number, and Yu Darvish are prisoners. Not prisoners. That's the wrong word to use. They're captors of the basic essence that they're the 2 best options on the table, and teams who want to improve themselves have to put the money up for what they believe are the best prospects in this class, in this agent market. So if Kluber was in this market, he'd be getting $30 million. And Darvish wouldn't. But they're not there. So it's basically saying, this is what you got. If you don't want to go dig a prospect out of your farm system, hi, I'm Yu Darvish. I'll take $21 million, please.
Yeah, and like you said, with being selected to the All-Star game, before the All-Star game, he was 6-8 with ERA of 3.49. So, I mean, it's not even great prior to the All-Star game, and then just blowing it up. I mean, it was nothing outstanding this year from him.
Right. I don't know. I guess it's been too long since I've looked at the meat and bones of, MLB contracts and how people like this are getting paid. Because I can see it in the NFL. Like, it makes sense to me that a Jimmy Garoppolo would get the kind of contract that he did because of there's such a small supply of decent quarterbacks in this league.
Is that not what I just said about the
Yeah.
free agent market?
No, but you did. You made that exact point, and that's what I'm saying is that I get it in the NFL. I haven't looked at baseball enough recently, I guess, to have made that same kind of correlation because I didn't see it. I see aces getting ace type money, middle starters getting middle starter type money.
What's middle starter type money for you?
I'd say 12 to 14.
Yeah, I think you're about a decade behind. That's the problem. And I'm not saying you have a bad. You're probably not, as a fan, that's probably a realistic notion, but the market has passed that by. Average starters. I remember when Matt Garza got paid like $16 million. I'm like, who? What the fuck?
Yeah, that was
this guy ain't worth. I mean, Matt Garza is not a great pitcher, and he was getting 16. Let me ask you a question, Spike.
All
right. So, Yu Darvish finished, like he said, with 3.86 ERA.
Yeah.
Where would you rank that if you had to put a number on it of the top pitchers as far as ERA? Because in my opinion, ERA of the basic stats, not these sabermetrics that everybody goes balls deep for, it's one of the most important. ERA and WHIP, right? ERA and WHIP. Okay?
Yes.
So 3.86. What number would you put him among the top ranked players?
Do you have an actual answer for me?
I do. I'm curious.
Okay.
I'm curious where you would place that in the rankings of the ERA leaders for the year.
For the ERA leaders of the year, I would say somewhere. I would have to think it would be in the 60s to 70s.
26.
I was going to say 25th.
He was 26th in ERA this year. Which, if you're classifying an ace, there's 30 teams.
Right, that's an ace. God damn it! All right.
Yeah.
So the lesson here is I need to watch baseball this year.
I just think contracts. Your notion of contracts has passed you by of the notion of. That's why we instituted that salary ceiling of the luxury tax, because people were getting astronomical contracts, and $21 million for a number 2 starter, or maybe even number 1 if Lester fades. Mm-hmm. This could be their ace. And if they're getting their ace at $21 million and he goes back to, early Texas, numbers, it could be a bargain. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, the guy who's on the list who actually is ahead of him is Lance Lynn, who's still on the market. So we'll have to see what happens with him. But like you said, what did you say with the 1.16 WHIP? Where would you put him in that?
Oh, that actually sounds better. I would say. Are you just looking at starters or starters and relievers?
Just starters.
Just starters?
Minimum 25 games.
That's got to be, I'd say, about 40th.
12. So, fuck, $21 million, like I'm saying, on face value seems high, but what you're getting for what you're paying, I mean, let me look at this. Okay, you're not getting, I'll run it down. You're not getting Kluber, you're not getting Scherzer, you're not getting Kershaw, Sale, Strasburg, Severino, Greinke, Carlos Carrasco, Santana, Jeff Samardzija, of all people.
What?
Yeah, Jeff Samardzija was top 10 in WHIP this year.
I can believe that.
And Robbie Ray were the players ahead of Yu Darvish. So, I don't know. To me, he was even ahead of Jake Arrieta, so this may seem like a steal for Chicago, and I think if they may even have the ability to get Arrieta back as well. Could you imagine Lester, Arrieta, and Darvish as a 1-2-3?
Fuck.
That'd be pretty nasty.
In an NL Central that, other than the Brewers, isn't very good. And even the Brewers are just okay. I mean, they've gotten better with Lorenzo Cain and Christian Yelich, but they've got to work out their pitching, so we'll have to see about this. But Darvish signing with the Cubs seems like, even at the $21 million that Spike balks at, seems like a good investment for Chicago. And Theo has done it again. Kind of seems like he's the way to do it more with less. So. Anyways, this has been another Vegas Square Snippet. We appreciate you tuning in.